The final report about the U.S. Missouri discovery sent waves through the galactic scientific community. As the Elder Council published their findings, research institutes across thousands of worlds began downloading and studying the data. The impact was far greater than anyone had expected. Universities quickly updated their courses on human history. Lecture halls that once taught about primitive Earth technology now showcased the Missouri as an example of human innovation. Students gathered around holographic displays of the ship's systems, studying how humans had accomplished so much with simple mechanical solutions. The most surprising change happened in engineering schools. Professors began challenging their students to solve problems using only mechanical systems, inspired by the Missouri's design. If humans could do this with gears and steam, imagine what you could do with our technology, became a common phrase in workshops across the galaxy. Military historians were particularly excited by the discoveries. They organized conferences to discuss how humans had managed such complex operations without advanced computers. The Missouri's combat coordination systems, though old, showed brilliant solutions to problems that still challenged modern ship designers. But it wasn't just the technical aspects that caught everyone's attention. The stories of daily life aboard the ship fascinated people across the galaxy. The way humans had created a complete floating community, managing everything from food to entertainment, sparked new research into human social structures. Art galleries began hosting exhibitions featuring reconstructions of life aboard the Missouri. Visitors could walk through holographic recreations of the ship's corridors, experiencing how the crew lived and worked. These exhibitions helped people understand that behind all the impressive technology were real humans living real lives. The discovery changed how the galaxy viewed human creativity. Scientists realized that humans hadn't needed advanced technology to solve complex problems, they just needed determination and clever thinking. This led to a whole new field of study focused on human problem-solving methods. Research teams began applying human mechanical solutions to modern problems. They found that sometimes the simple, reliable systems humans had developed worked better than complex electronic ones. Engineering firms started looking for ways to combine human mechanical ingenuity with modern technology. The Missouri's role in ending a global conflict particularly touched many alien cultures. The idea that a warship could become a symbol of peace resonated deeply. Historical societies began studying how humans transformed places of conflict into monuments of reconciliation. Educational programs across the galaxy started teaching young aliens about human innovation. They used the Missouri as an example of how creative thinking could overcome technological limitations. Students learned that progress wasn't just about having advanced technology, it was about using whatever tools you had in clever ways. The most lasting impact was on how the galaxy viewed ancient human civilization. The Missouri proved that humans hadn't just survived with limited technology, they had thrived and innovated. This led to a complete reassessment of human achievements from other time periods as well. As the research project officially concluded, the Elder Council made an unprecedented decision. They designated the USS Missouri site as a protected historical landmark, ensuring it would be preserved for future generations to study and admire. They understood that this ship wasn't just a relic, it was a testament to human ingenuity that still had lessons to teach. The ocean itself seemed to hold its breath that morning. The research fleet had grown to 12 ships, all circled around the discovery site like moths around a flame. Dr. Patel hadn't slept in nearly 30 hours, but nobody could sleep, not with what was happening beneath the waves. The energy readings just doubled, one of the technicians called out, his voice tight with excitement. Whatever it is down there, it's definitely waking up. The research team had been trying to study the structure without disturbing it, but that choice was taken out of their hands. The first tremor caught everyone by surprise. Coffee cups rattled off tables, and people grabbed onto whatever they could find to stay upright. "Everyone to your stations," Dr. Patel shouted over the ship's intercom. "And someone get me a direct line to the coastal authorities." The ocean began to churn, not like normal waves, but as if something massive was moving beneath the surface. Fish by the thousands burst from the water, creating silver ribbons across the disturbed sea. The sonar equipment was going crazy, showing the impossible. The entire structure was shifting, pieces moving like a giant puzzle coming to life. Through the drone cameras, they watched in awe as ancient stone plates slid against each other with impossible precision. Sections that had been buried under millennia of sand and coral began to rise, revealing more of the structure's true form. It was a ship, or at least something like a ship, but its design defied everything they knew about naval architecture. "Look at the craftsmanship," whispered Dr. Patel's colleague, his eyes glued to the screen. "Those aren't seams or welds. It's like the whole thing was grown or printed somehow." Water cascaded off massive surfaces as the vessel began its rise to the surface. Its hull gleamed with a material that looked like a cross between polished marble and metal, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. As it broke the surface, everyone on the research vessels rushed to the railings, phones and cameras in hand, trying to capture what they were seeing. The ship, if you could call it that, was enormous. It rose from the water like a mountain made of dreams and impossible technology. Parts of it looked ancient, with classical columns and arches that belonged in a Greek temple. But other sections were clearly far beyond current human technology, smooth, almost organic curves that glowed with inner light and surfaces that seemed to ripple and adapt even as they watched. Military vessels had begun to arrive, keeping their distance but clearly unsure how to handle the situation. A few fighter jets screamed overhead, a reminder that not everyone would see this discovery as purely scientific. "Those markings," Dr. Patel said, studying the symbols that decorated the hull. "Some of them are definitely ancient Greek, but others, I've never seen anything like them. It's as if two completely different civilizations built this thing together." The vessel's emergence had created a perfect circle of calm water around it, despite the choppy seas beyond. As it settled on the surface, ports and hatches began to open along its sides, each movement precise and deliberate, like a flower blooming in fast motion. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant tone that everyone felt in their bones. It wasn't threatening, but it demanded attention, like the voice of the ocean itself. Lights began to trace patterns across the vessel's surface, following the mysterious symbols and bringing them to life. "I don't think this is just a ship," Dr. Patel said quietly, watching as more details emerged from the sea spray. "I think it's a message. Something left behind by our ancestors, waiting for us to be ready to find it." The sun broke through the clouds at that moment, making the whole vessel shimmer like a mirage. But it was real, all too real, and sitting there on the Mediterranean Sea was proof that everything humanity thought it knew about its own history was about to change forever. Somewhere in the distance, a whale sang, as if welcoming back something long lost to the depths. The Atlantean vessel had awakened, and with it, a new chapter in human history had begun. Nobody noticed the alien ships at first. Everyone was too busy staring at the massive Atlantean vessel that had just emerged from the ocean. It wasn't until one of the naval officers shouted and pointed at the sky that heads began to turn upward. 3 objects hung in the evening sky, visible despite the daylight. They looked like dark teardrops suspended above the earth, their surfaces shifting colors like oil on water. No one needed to be told these weren't human spacecraft. They moved with a grace that made our best aircraft look clumsy in comparison. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Patel whispered into her satellite phone, speaking to the UN Emergency Council that had been hastily assembled. They appeared right after the vessel surfaced. No warning, no sonic booms. They're just there. The military vessels surrounding the site were clearly on edge. Fighter jets circled in holding patterns, waiting for orders that nobody knew how to give. How do you handle first contact when you're already dealing with an ancient supership rising from the ocean? Through high-powered telescopes, the research team could see patterns on the alien ships that matched some of the symbols on the Atlantean vessel. The connection was impossible to miss. These visitors hadn't come by chance. They'd been waiting, watching, perhaps for thousands of years. "Look at the hull designs," one of the researchers pointed out. "The way they curve and flow, it's similar to parts of the ocean vessel, like they were built using the same basic principles." The first communication came as a surprise to everyone, not from the alien ships, but from the Atlantean vessel itself. A soft, pulsing light began to trace patterns across its surface, creating symbols that matched those on the ships above. It was like watching 2 old friends greeting each other after a very long time apart. The alien vessels responded with their own light display. The patterns they created seemed to dance and interweave with those from the ocean vessel, creating a conversation in light that nobody on Earth could yet understand. Dr. Patel's team scrambled to record and analyze everything. These aren't random patterns, she explained to the military commanders who had gathered on the research vessel. They're repeating in specific sequences. It's definitely a language, maybe the same one used when this ship was built. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Humanity was watching a conversation between their own forgotten past and beings from another world. Some people on the ships were praying, others were taking pictures, and more than a few were quietly crying at the sheer magnitude of what they were witnessing. Then something changed. The alien ships began to descend, moving with impossible grace through the atmosphere. They took up positions around the Atlantean vessel, forming a perfect triangle. As they got closer, everyone could see they were smaller than the ocean ship, but still impressive, each one about the size of an aircraft carrier. "They're not hostile," Dr. Patel said firmly to the nervous military personnel. "Look at how they're positioning themselves. If they wanted to threaten us, they wouldn't be so careful, so respectful." She was right. The alien ships moved like they were performing a carefully choreographed dance, showing both power and restraint. They were making it clear they could have appeared anywhere, done anything, but they chose to approach slowly, openly. As the sun began to set, the ships, both alien and Atlantean, began to glow with a soft, pearl-like light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like watching history and future collide right in front of your eyes. "I think," Dr. Patel said quietly, watching the light show reflect off the calm waters, "they're not just here to make contact. They're here to remind us of something we forgot a very long time ago." The next few hours would prove her right, as humanity stood on the brink of learning just how much of their history they had forgotten, and how much bigger their future might be than anyone had imagined. The morning sun cast long shadows across the deck of the research vessel as Dr. Patel and her team prepared for something unprecedented, boarding the ancient ship. After hours of discussion with military and government officials, they'd gotten clearance to approach the vessel that had called itself Poseidon's Spear through its light signals. "Anyone else's hands shaking?" asked one of the younger researchers as they loaded equipment into the small boat. Nobody answered, but their nervous smiles said everything. They were about to step into something that would change history forever. The closer they got to the massive ship, the more incredible it looked. What they'd first thought were decorative patterns on the hull were actually moving, shifting slightly like the surface of a calm sea. The team's instruments were going crazy, picking up energy signatures unlike anything they'd ever seen. "Look there," Dr. Patel pointed to what appeared to be an opening in the side of the vessel. "It's like it's inviting us in." The entrance had appeared moments ago, smoothly transforming from solid hull to doorway as they approached. The small team stepped onto the ship's surface, their boots touching something that felt like a cross between marble and warm metal. The material seemed to respond to their presence, lighting up softly under their feet with each step. It wasn't cold and lifeless like normal metal, it felt almost alive. "This is remarkable," breathed Dr. Patel's colleague as he ran his hand along a wall covered in symbols. "Some of these markings, they're definitely ancient Greek, but they're mixed with something else. Something older, maybe." As they moved deeper into the ship, lights came on automatically, illuminating corridors that seemed to blend ancient architecture with impossible technology. Classical columns stood alongside control panels that glowed with soft light, and arched doorways opened and closed on their own as the team approached. Then they found something extraordinary, a large circular room that appeared to be some kind of control center. In the middle stood what looked like a pedestal, covered in both familiar Greek letters and the strange symbols they'd seen outside. "Wait," Dr. Patel said suddenly, squinting at one of the panels. "These Greek symbols, they're not just decorative. They're instructions." She leaned closer, her eyes wide with realization. "It's telling us how to interface with the ship." The team watched in amazement as she began to translate. The ancient Greeks hadn't just helped build the ship, they'd left behind a user manual, hidden in plain sight within classical texts that archaeologists had been studying for centuries. But there was something else too. When Dr. Patel placed her hand on one of the panels, it lit up with a soft blue glow. A gentle humming filled the room, and streams of light began to flow through the walls like rivers of stars. "It's reading our DNA," one of the scientists exclaimed, checking his instruments. "The ship, it's checking to see if we're human. It's been waiting for the right people to come back." The lights settled into a steady pattern, and suddenly the air was filled with three-dimensional images, star maps, technical diagrams, and historical records, all floating in the space around them like a cosmic library. "This isn't just a ship," Dr. Patel whispered, watching as ancient knowledge unfolded before them. "It's a bridge between who we were and who we could become." The team spent hours recording and documenting everything they could, their excitement growing with each new discovery. The ship wasn't just showing them their past, it was offering to teach them how to reclaim knowledge that humanity had lost thousands of years ago. As the day drew to a close, one thing became crystal clear. They had found more than just an ancient vessel. They had found proof that humanity's greatest chapter wasn't in its past or present, but in a future they were only beginning to understand. The alien ships remained in position above them, silent witnesses to humanity's first steps back toward a destiny they had forgotten was theirs to claim. The truth hit them like a wave when the ship's historical archives finally opened. Dr. Patel and her team stood motionless, watching as holographic images filled the chamber around them, showing scenes from a past that no history book had ever recorded. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," whispered one of the researchers, his voice shaking with emotion. The images showed ancient Athens, but not the Athens they knew from history. This was a city of impossible beauty, where classical architecture blended seamlessly with advanced technology. Flying vehicles moved between buildings while people in traditional Greek clothing worked alongside beings that were clearly not from Earth. The ship's database revealed everything. Atlantis hadn't just been a city, it had been Earth's first diplomatic center for interstellar relations. The Greeks hadn't built it alone. They'd had help from civilizations across the galaxy. It was humanity's first step into a much larger universe. "Look at these construction records," Dr. Patel said, her fingers moving through the holographic data. The ships, the buildings, the technology, it was all a collaboration. They were teaching us, helping us grow, but letting us develop in our own way. More images appeared, great halls where human philosophers debated with alien scholars, workshops where craftsmen learned to blend traditional methods with advanced science, and harbors where ships from the stars floated alongside ancient Greek vessels. But then came the warning signs. The archives showed growing tension, fear spreading among both humans and their alien allies. Something was coming, a dark age that would send humanity backward by thousands of years. They knew, Dr. Patel breathed, reading the ancient records. They saw it coming. Political instability, climate changes, wars. They knew humanity wasn't ready to handle the power they had access to. The next sequence of images was heartbreaking. The aliens and human leaders made a difficult choice together. Rather than let their advanced technology fall into the wrong hands during the coming chaos, they would hide it. Atlantis wouldn't be destroyed. It would be protected, preserved for a time when humanity was ready to reclaim its place among the stars. "The sinking of Atlantis," one of the team members said quietly. "It wasn't an accident or a natural disaster. It was a preservation effort. They hid everything under the ocean, protected by technology we're only now beginning to understand." The final records showed the farewell. Alien ships departing as Atlantis and its fleet of advanced vessels were carefully hidden beneath the waves. But they hadn't abandoned Earth. They'd left watchers, observers who would wait and monitor humanity's progress. "That's who they are," Dr. Patel realized, looking up through the ship's transparent ceiling at the alien vessels still hovering above. "They're the descendants of those original allies, waiting for us to find our way back." The chamber filled with a soft chime, and new data began to appear. Current readings, assessments of Earth's present situation, and something else, an invitation. The ship was offering to show them more, to teach them what their ancestors had learned. Someone's phone buzzed, the outside world demanding attention. Messages were pouring in from around the globe. Other sites were being discovered. Similar ships and structures, hidden under the ice in Antarctica, beneath the mountains of South America, in the depths of the Pacific. "This isn't just about one ship," Dr. Patel said, her voice filled with wonder. "This is about reclaiming our heritage. Everything we forgot, everything we lost, it's all been waiting for us." As if responding to her words, the ship hummed to life around them. New rooms opened, revealing libraries of knowledge, workshops filled with tools they barely understood, and chambers that seemed designed to teach and train. The sun was setting outside, painting the ocean in gold and purple. But inside the ancient vessel, humanity's past was lighting the way to its future, one revelation at a time. The world seemed to hold its breath for about 5 minutes after the truth about Atlantis went public. Then everything exploded into chaos. Another military ship just entered the exclusion zone, called out one of the radar operators. Dr. Patel looked up from her work inside the ancient vessel, exhaustion clear on her face. In the past 48 hours, the number of warships surrounding them had tripled. World leaders were all claiming the ship belonged to their nation. Some cited ancient territorial waters, others argued about the good of humanity, but everyone wanted control. Naval vessels from 5 different countries now circled the site like hungry sharks. Inside the Atlantean ship, Dr. Patel's team worked frantically to document everything they could. "We need to save as much of this knowledge as possible," she told her colleagues, though they all knew regular computers could barely scratch the surface of what the ship contained. The alien observers hadn't stayed quiet. Their ships remained in position, but now they were broadcasting a message that every radio on Earth could receive. They introduced themselves as the Galactic Historical Society, and their words were both thrilling and terrifying. "We've been watching humanity recover from its fall," their message explained in every known language. "But finding this vessel ahead of schedule has created a difficult situation. Your species needs to prove it can handle this responsibility." Down on the waves, things were getting tense. A group of small boats tried to break through the security perimeter, claiming they represented humanity's religious interests. The military turned them back, but more were coming. "Look at this," Dr. Patel's colleague called out, pointing to one of the ship's displays. "The vessel is recording everything happening outside. It's evaluating us, like it's trying to decide if we're ready." The situation reached its breaking point when one nation decided to take matters into their own hands. 3 attack helicopters approached from the east, claiming they were there to secure the site for humanity's protection. Dr. Patel watched the monitors in horror as the helicopters got closer. But then something remarkable happened. The ship responded, not with weapons, but with defense. A soft, shimmering field appeared in the air, gently catching the helicopters and holding them in place like insects in amber. "That's impossible," whispered one of the military observers. The helicopter's engines were running, their rotors spinning, but they weren't moving. They hung there, perfectly safe but completely stopped. The alien ships above them pulsed with light, sending out a new message. "The vessel's defensive capabilities exceed anything currently on your planet. This technology cannot be taken by force. It must be earned through cooperation." Slowly, carefully, the ship lowered the helicopters to the nearby water where rescue boats could reach them. Nobody was hurt, but the message was clear. The ancient technology wouldn't be controlled through military might. World leaders scrambled to respond. Emergency UN sessions were called. The ship had demonstrated power beyond anything modern militaries could match, but had used it with a gentleness that made warfare look primitive in comparison. "Don't you see?" Dr. Patel addressed the gathering of military and government officials on the research vessel. "This is exactly why the ship was hidden. Not because the technology was dangerous, but because we needed to learn how to use power wisely before we could handle it." As night fell, the tension remained high, but something had changed. The ship's display of power and restraint had shaken everyone out of their power fantasies. Now they faced a bigger question. Could humanity set aside its differences and prove worthy of its own forgotten legacy? Above them, the alien observers waited patiently. They'd been watching Earth for thousands of years. A few more days wouldn't make a difference, unless humanity chose to make them count. Nobody saw the attack coming until it was too late. In the pre-dawn darkness, 6 unmarked submarines surfaced suddenly around the Atlantean vessel. Before anyone could react, they launched what looked like specially designed grappling equipment, trying to capture the ancient ship by force. Dr. Patel and her team watched in alarm as the ship's internal displays lit up with warning signals. "They're trying to hack the systems," one of the tech experts shouted, pointing at streams of data flowing across the screens. "Someone's been planning this for days." But the ancient vessel had been defending itself against threats for thousands of years. Its response was immediate and breathtaking. First, the water around the ship began to glow with a soft blue light. The grappling equipment simply dissolved, turning to harmless dust that scattered in the wind. Then, a dome of pure energy rose from the waves, encasing the ancient ship in a shield that looked like liquid diamonds. "It's beautiful," whispered one of the researchers, even as alarms blared around them. The shield wasn't just for protection, it was a work of art, refracting the morning light into countless rainbow patterns across the waves. The attacking submarines found themselves lifted gently but firmly out of the water, held in massive cradles of energy. Their weapon systems powered down automatically, and their engines went quiet. The ship wasn't just defending itself, it was making sure nobody got hurt in the process. "Look at these readings," Dr. Patel called out, studying the ship's displays. "The energy shield isn't just stopping attacks, it's cleaning the ocean water it touches. It's actually pulling out pollution and plastic waste." Military vessels from around the world watched in stunned silence. The ancient ship had just neutralized a coordinated attack without causing a single injury or even a scratch of damage. It was a display of power that made modern weapons look like children's toys. The alien observers chose that moment to make contact again. Their message echoed through every speaker and communication device. The Ancient Ones built their technology to protect and nurture, not to destroy. This vessel is a teacher, not a weapon. Inside the ship, new rooms began to open automatically, revealing technology that left the research team speechless. They saw medical bays that could cure diseases modern medicine couldn't touch, energy systems that could power entire cities without pollution, and farming techniques that could turn deserts green. This is what they were protecting, Dr. Patel realized, watching as the ship displayed its true capabilities. Not just advanced weapons or power sources, but solutions to problems we're still struggling with today. The failed attack had triggered something unexpected, a full awakening of the vessel's systems. Like a patient teacher, it began sharing more of its knowledge, showing humanity not just what it could do, but what it could teach them to do for themselves. News spread quickly across the globe. People watched in awe as the ancient ship demonstrated one miraculous capability after another. It could clean radiation from contaminated areas, predict and prevent natural disasters, and even repair damage to Earth's atmosphere. "It's not about controlling this power," Dr. Patel explained to the world leaders who were now frantically calling for peaceful negotiations. "It's about learning to use it wisely. Our ancestors knew this technology could either lift us to the stars or destroy us completely. That's why they waited until we were ready." The sun rose fully over the horizon, its light playing through the ship's energy shield to create patterns of impossible beauty on the waves below. The attack had failed, but it had accomplished something nobody expected. It had shown humanity a glimpse of its own potential. Above them, the alien ships continued their patient vigil. They had seen countless civilizations face this moment of choice. Now they watched as humanity stood on the brink of either its greatest achievement or its most tragic mistake. The great hole inside the Atlantean vessel hummed with tension. Representatives from every major nation on Earth sat in ancient seats that had once held beings from across the galaxy. Through the crystalline ceiling, the three alien ships could be seen hovering like silent guardians. Dr. Patel stood at the front of the hall, beside a shimmering holographic display. "What we decide here today will shape the future of our entire species," she said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "The Galactic Historical Society has given us a choice." The alien observers had finally revealed their full message. Humanity could choose to immediately rejoin the galactic community, accessing all the knowledge and technology of their ancestors at once. Or they could take a slower path, learning and growing gradually under guidance. "Think carefully," the alien message had warned. "Quick power without wisdom destroyed many civilizations before yours. But too much caution can be equally dangerous in a universe full of challenges." Inside the ship's control room, screens displayed the current state of Earth: rising seas, depleting resources, growing conflicts. The ancient vessel had been monitoring these problems, waiting for the right moment to help address them. "We're facing a test," one world leader stood up to speak, "not of our technology or our power, but of our wisdom." Others nodded in agreement. The failed attack on the ship had shown everyone that force was pointless against such advanced technology. The ship itself seemed to be participating in their discussion. As different topics came up, it displayed relevant historical records. Other civilizations that had faced similar choices, some that succeeded and some that destroyed themselves with power they weren't ready to handle. Look at what the ship showed us about our ancestors, Dr. Patel pointed out. They didn't just hide this technology, they encoded its instructions into our myths, our languages, our art. They were preparing us, teaching us gradually across thousands of years. Outside, the world held its breath. Live feeds showed crowds gathered in cities across the globe, watching and waiting. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was focused on the same question: were they ready for this leap forward? Then something unexpected happened. The ship's systems detected a critical environmental warning. A massive underwater earthquake was building up near a populated coastline. In minutes, it could trigger a devastating tsunami. Without waiting for human commands, the ancient vessel demonstrated its power. Energy fields extended for hundreds of miles, gently redirecting the seismic forces, dispersing them harmlessly across the ocean floor. It had just prevented a natural disaster that modern technology could only have watched helplessly. "That's our answer," Dr. Patel said quietly, watching the readings. "We need both, the power to help our world and the wisdom to know how to use it properly. We need to learn, but we also need to act." The whole fell silent as understanding spread. Then one of the younger delegates stood up. "What if we ask for something new? Not immediate power, not just slow learning, but a partnership. Let us prove ourselves project by project, problem by problem." The alien ships above them pulsed with light, approval. The ancient vessel's systems came alive, displaying new information. It had been designed for exactly this: to be not just a source of power, but a teacher, a guide, a bridge between who humanity had been and who they could become. "We choose to learn," Dr. Patel announced, speaking for all humanity in that moment. "But we also choose to act. Show us how to help our world, and let us prove we're ready for each new step." As if in response, the ship began to glow with a warm golden light. Above them, the alien vessels moved into a new formation, not of oversight, but of partnership. The choice had been made, and now the real work could begin. 3 months after the Atlantean vessel first rose from the waves, the ancient hull looked different. Earth's representatives now sat comfortably alongside members of the Galactic Historical Society, their initial fear replaced by growing understanding. Dr. Patel watched from her usual spot as a young engineer demonstrated their first successful project, a small device that could clean polluted water using principles learned from the ship's technology. It wasn't as advanced as the original, but that was the point. They were learning to develop their own solutions, not just copying ancient ones. "This is only the beginning," the engineer explained, his eyes bright with excitement. "We're starting small, proving we can handle each new piece of knowledge responsibly before moving to bigger challenges." The ship had become a university of sorts, a place where scientists and researchers from around the world came to learn. But they weren't just studying technology. The ancient vessel's libraries contained knowledge about art, philosophy, medicine, and ways of thinking that had been lost to time. "Look at these," Dr. Patel said, gesturing to displays showing projects happening around the world. Teams were learning to use simplified versions of Atlantean technology to clean up ocean pollution, restore damaged ecosystems, and develop clean energy sources. The alien observers had become teachers and partners, sharing stories of how other civilizations had handled their own growth into galactic society. Some of their tales were warnings, others inspiration, but all of them helped humanity understand its place in a much larger community. "We found something interesting in the old records," one of the researchers announced during the daily briefing. "Our ancestors didn't just leave us technology, they left us puzzles to solve, challenges that would help us develop the wisdom to use it." The ship itself seemed to approve of their gradual approach. Each time a team successfully completed a project, demonstrating both technical skill and responsible use, new rooms would open, offering access to more advanced knowledge. Outside, the world was changing. Countries that had once been enemies now worked together on shared projects. The first test of the ship's weather control systems had required cooperation between nations that hadn't spoken peacefully in decades. "Remember when we first found this ship?" Dr. Patel asked her team during a quiet moment. "We thought we were discovering our past, but we were really finding our future." The alien ships still hovered overhead, but they were no longer mysterious observers. Their crews regularly joined discussions, shared meals with the human teams, and helped bridge the gap between Earth's current technology and the wonders they were slowly learning to understand. One of the most remarkable changes was in how people viewed their own history. Museums around the world were discovering that many of their ancient artifacts contained hidden messages, clues left behind by their ancestors to help guide humanity back to the stars. "It's like they left us a trail of breadcrumbs," one historian explained, showing how ancient symbols contained encoded scientific principles. "They believed in us, believed we would find our way back." As the sun set on another day of discovery, Dr. Patel stood at the ship's observation deck, watching the ocean below. Teams of researchers were heading home for the night, but others were arriving for the evening shift. The work never really stopped. Humanity had too much to learn, too much to prove. The Atlantean vessel glowed softly in the growing darkness, its lights reflecting off the waves like stars fallen to Earth. Above, the real stars beckoned, no longer distant and unreachable, but waiting for humanity to earn its place among them. It wasn't just a new chapter in human history. It was the continuation of a story that had begun thousands of years ago. And this time, they were determined to get it right.